may or may not be live. It says it's setting up live, but I think that means it probably is live, and it is. Excellent. Well, welcome to those who are here with us, and welcome to those who are watching on Facebook. It's very special today. We have a guest speaker, composer Althea Talbot-Howard, who is a woodwind specialist, so that was the specific reason why I invited her, to even up the piano woodwind dynamic. So with no further ado, I will hand the floor over. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and a really big thank you for inviting me to participate. I'm very pleased to make your acquaintance indeed. Just so people know, we met very recently on one of Sarah's pages that she administrates, where I posted a video that you will actually see here about my recent contribution to the ABRSM piano syllabus. So just before people start to get upset, I only have one piece on the piano syllabus. I have 9 pieces on the woodwind syllabus, so I will address piano for those people who are interested, but the bulk of today will be all about woodwind. Just to say a little bit about myself, something that Sarah and I have in common is that she lives in Australia, and I actually grew up in Australia for part of my childhood for about 10 years. So I was in the AMEB, that's the Australian Music Examinations Board boot camp. When I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, music was boot camp. It was, you know, you did what your teacher told you, and you did it as well as you could, and you practiced as hard as you could. And I'm so grateful for that training that I got in Australia. But I have also had the experience of doing ABRSM and also Trinity exams myself in the UK. I started my career as a professional musician 30 years ago, actually, in 1992. And my profile then, which you can see from the photograph that's on the screen, is that I was an oboe soloist and also a teacher. So I used to mainly to do recitals, the occasional concerto, and orchestral work, and also a lot of teaching. And 30 years later, I find myself for the first time actually without any pupils, which I'm not sorry about. It's not what I expected in my life, and I didn't expect that. I really did not expect that to happen. I always thought I would teach until I was about 80. I kind of visualized myself being in an armchair saying, you know, quieter, or whatever it is I wanted to say to them. But actually, I've made a career transition over the last 8 years, and I'm now primarily a composer with performing rather than just a performer and teacher. So what's been really exciting for me has been the opportunity to work with ABRSM, and I just like to speak not too long about that if I can manage to do that. Around the end of what we call the noughties in the UK, but they call the aughts in America. I'm not quite sure what the term is in Australia, but around 2008-9, I started learning the piano properly as an adult, because I hadn't actually had the opportunity to do that as a child. My field was recorder, violin, oboe, and singing, and theory and musicianship. So I started learning the piano around that time, which has had an impact on my teaching. I wanted to be able to use it in my teaching practice, accompany pupils, basic things. And it's also actually led to my becoming a composer. But around that time, I noticed that I had a left-hand condition with the oboe, because many oboists will know that we've got, you know, 5 keys for little finger to play. And over time, that became more and more of a problem. So I actually stood down from oboe performance in 2018, just thinking that I wanted to take a new course in life. And I had already spent about 4 years working on compositions. I started back in 2014 because this is something that might actually happen to some of you, and I'm hoping that we can talk later about teachers and composition. But I just found myself becoming really bored with everybody else's tutor books. I mean, I had spent maybe too long with tutor books that I had used as a child, you know, A Tune a Day, which I think is fantastic, very traditional, John Thompson, things like that. But I found myself becoming more and more critical, thinking, well, I would do it like this and I would do it like that. So then the thought came to me that I should actually write my own materials. And so I started, and I was inspired by another piano teacher who had done that. So I started actually writing tutor materials, and I literally started with a semi-brief B for recorder, because I thought, well, I think you shouldn't start with crotches. I think you should start with a semi-brief, teach breathing and sustain the notes. So I started with a semi-brief B. And as I started writing tutor materials for all the instruments that I taught, which is those instruments that I've mentioned. It's a multi-instrumental teaching practice. I started to write tunes, and then later I started to write accompaniments. And then I thought to myself, well, if you want to learn how to compose, how did you learn to play your instrument? You started with a tutor book on B, didn't you? And then you learned grade 1 music or initial or preliminary. We had an AMEB. Then you learned grade 2 and grade 3, plus all the other music and studies and things like that you did. So I thought, okay, well, in that case, I'm going to start with my tutor book, and then I'm going to write music for an initial pupil, and then I'm going to write music for a grade 1 pupil, and then I'm going to write it for a grade 2. And this went on over 4 years. I'd write about 3 or 4 pieces every autumn for my pupils, and they would be played in the Southend Musical Festival in Essex, which is very much like the Eisteddfod that I used to attend, Sarah, in Canberra when I was growing up. And, we all had to compete and play and things like that. So the other reason I wanted to do this was that I thought, well, if I get enough together, I should have enough after 4 years that I could either publish a volume or I could send them in to the exam boards and see whether they were interested, because each piece had a real pedagogical remit. Like there was a kind of something that I was trying to achieve from a pedagogical point of view, not just from a technical point of view, but also from a musical point of view with each piece. So I was thinking then, okay, I'll be able to hand them into the exam boards, but also most importantly, because I'm new to composing, the children will have tried them out in performance, and I'll be there and I will hear, is it working for the child? Is the piano part working? Does the piece itself work? Do I need to adjust the dynamics? All of those things. So the pieces were tried and tested between 2015 to 18. We then recorded them. That's myself and my pupils and my own duo partner, Dominic Saunders, on piano. We went up to Cambridge, which is my old university, and we hired the hall. And you can see these videos on my YouTube channel, which is there on the screen. You can see it. And if you look down the page, you'll see, beautiful children standing there with their recorders. Those are the videos of the pieces that I wrote between 2014, 15 and 18. Then shortly after that, the pandemic got started, but I did contact the board. The next year in 2020, I contacted the ABRSM board again, and the time was right. They were working on the woodwind syllabus, and they were very interested in hearing from me, which was really exciting. And at the end of the day, as I said previously, I've ended up with 9 pieces on the woodwind. We started with 1 and we ended up with 9 pieces on the woodwind syllabus, 6 of them original compositions, all from this period of time, 2015 to 18. 2 of them arrangements by an Afro-French composer called Joseph Bologne, Chevalier de Saint-Georges. And if I go to here, let's just see if my computer will come back to life after having been still for some time. There we go. That's better. You can see a picture of Chevalier here. There's actually a film that's due out. It's been due out for a while. A biopic, a Disney biopic is due out about him this year called Chevalier. So I'll just mention that so you kind of keep an eye out for him. I did 2 arrangements of music by him, and I will talk about that later on. And I've also done 1 more arrangement for the piano syllabus. So I've grouped those together a little bit further into this presentation. And then I also had 1 commission, and that piece was a grade 1 clarinet commission, and we will actually start with that straight away. So just moving on to here, the piece that the board very kindly asked me to write, which I was very honoured and very excited, was Rainbow's End. Now, they didn't say, could you please go and write Rainbow's End? Because it doesn't work like that. They give you a remit. And then I looked out of the window and I started to think about what title could I give this piece that would be really inspiring to pupils. And Sarah and I were chatting just before things started, and I was telling her that I live in East London. I have to confess, I live in one of the poorest parts of London, I must confess. So I was looking out of the window. It's actually on the well, anyway, I won't say, but it's one of the poorer parts of London. And I was looking out the window, and I started to think, because my sense of humor, runs away with me sometimes. I was like, what am I going to call this? I'm just like, should I call it the broken skateboard? Or what was the other? The stolen bicycle. That's right. I mean, it's just, those are the kind of things that go on in my environment far too much. It's far too much that kind of antisocial behavior. So I thought, no, the head of publishing is not going to like that. So then I looked out of the window, and I suddenly remember this amazing rainbow that I had seen from my studio window. I thought, rainbow, that's a bit more like it. It's a bit more what they'll want for ABRSM. And then I thought, Rainbow's End. what a great name that would be to get children's imaginations going, thinking about, what is at the end of the rainbow. That's a question I thought that teachers would be able to discuss with their pupils. And so that was really good. So I thought, right, that's great. It's much better than the stolen bicycle. We're going to have Rainbow's End and something really that would promote the innocence of childhood, because that's something that I really believe in very strongly. I mean, life is very challenging for everybody, but it's great if we can try to keep, that kind of wonder and imagination for children. So I was then given a remit, which I won't go into, by the board about what they wanted, just so how the piece is actually placed within the syllabus, because it's actually in the syllabus anthology, which is another thing which is very exciting, because it means, nearly everybody buys a syllabus anthology. So, one has this fantastic honor of having one's music being played around the world by by pupils and worked on by their teachers, which for me is just, is kind of really unbelievable. It's such a privilege. And sometimes when I'm, slogging here in my studio, I have saying to Sarah, so much work going on. But then suddenly I remember, I think, gosh, all the way around the world on children's music stands and in people's teaching studios, it could be my piece that they've chosen. And it's very, very exciting. And it's just such an honor. You think of all these professional musicians working with their pupils on your music. So I'm really thrilled to have gone through 30 years of teaching and now to be the person who's actually whose music is on the music stands. It's just like it's such a miracle, and it's such a pleasure. And as I say, I'm so grateful to the board for this opportunity. And just to talk a little bit about Rainbow's End, and then I'm going to screen share and play part of the lyric video. It's we have a B-flat score for clarinet. I think it kind of really is just for clarinet. A number of these scores, actually the range of keys are, we've got C scores, B-flat scores, E-flat scores for saxophone, and F scores for treble recorder, which means that there are all sorts of different applications, even, for string teachers. If there's something that you fancy in a C score, you're going to be able to get it most likely, because these pieces are also available as digital downloads, as you can see there at the top right on the screen. So, but this piece, Rainbow's End, I think pretty much is really just for clarinet. It's in the Chevalier register, which is typical, the bottom of the 3 registers of the clarinet. It is about breathing, it's about lyricism. We've got a long note at the end just for people to practice that breath control there. And just the general feel is a kind of modal Celtic feel with a pretty straightforward piano part, the kind of piano part that I can play. So actually, another one of the kind of amazing things about this is that my piano skills, because of having acquired them late, are only about grade 5 to 6 standard. But actually, that's kind of perfect for writing the board sometimes, wants, not every piano part is going to be for a Christopher Norton type, for example, or anybody else who's, a kind of fantastic pianist. So actually, it's quite good for me. I think, oh, well, if I could play it, then I've probably hit about the right standards. So this is one that I could play, the piano part. And let me just move over to the new share, which is going to be the first on this playlist. Just for people also to know, on my YouTube channel, there is the ABRSM playlist, and we are going to work our way through the first 10 items on that. If anything doesn't stream well now, or it doesn't work or whatever, you'll be able to go to YouTube yourself and have a look if you're interested. Let's go here. And just a quick thing to say about this. this is actually, it goes through again. So I've done kind of just two versions of the video here. And that is actually the official copy of the recording by Peter and by Ian. So that's the official ABRSM recording that was shared by agreement. So just go to the new share. So back to here we are. Fantastic. So the next piece is also grade 1, and this is Chanson de ma patrie. And I must say there's actually a funny story attached to this, which I will tell in a moment. Let me just be serious first, and then I'll tell you the funny story, which I think you will laugh when you hear it. Chanson de ma patrie is one of 6 chansons that I wrote for my pupils with the idea to going through from initial to grade 3 of wanting them to hear a different form of kind of harmony, melody, modality, tonality, different musical styles. So this style that I thought that would be good to do with this one was the patriotic song. So it's a bit like a kind of a rather artistic national anthem. That's the idea there, just for the children to be able to access some feelings of love of home, or something that they can actually put into their playing, just even trying to make a start at accessing musicianship and things like that. The scores are in B flat and E flat. The piece is in saxophone exam pieces. As you can see, it's List B number 1. It's in the exam pieces in exam pack, and also available, like Rainbow's End, as a digital download, which is a wonderful innovation. I'm sure some of you have used these already. Amazing, available worldwide for £1.99 or £2.99. You buy the score, you print it off yourself, off you go. How exciting is that? So, so that's really, really good. So we've got the exam pack, exam pieces, and the digital download. The scores are in B flat and in E flat. The B flat is for the soprano saxophone. The E flat is for the alto saxophone. For anybody who's not familiar with the saxophone books, they're really amazing, actually. What happens is the saxophone part is actually in the hard copy of the book, and the piano score is the insert. And the piano score is something that you turn it up one way for B flat piano parts, and then you turn it upside down and flip it over, and you get the E flat piano parts. So it was I had no idea until I got asked to do this arrangement. So that's really amazing. I think at this tessitura, which is higher than Rainbow's End, we have supplementary repertoire here for clarinet and trumpet. If anybody particularly likes a piece and they want pieces for children to do in between the grades, or just extra music, or even some sight reading practice, or whatever it is, it's a digital download, so you could get hold of this for other instruments as well. We will go to Sarah's video shortly, but if I could just tell this funny story. This was actually, this was originally a recorder piece. And you can see in the dedication, it says, we might be able to see it, it says for Milan Pavan, a pupil of mine, very, very good recorder pupil. And you can see him in 4 videos on my YouTube channel. So I sent it in, it was modeled on the recorder like the other pieces, and I sent it in. And it was the first piece accepted by ABRSM. I was absolutely overjoyed. And one of the things they said was, it will be arranged for saxophone. So I thought to myself, oh, that's good. Oh, that's great. You know, that's wonderful. I love the sax. That's fine. So I was like, and I thought to myself, I wonder who'll do that. Anyway, so that kind of went on for about a month. And because all the time, the deadlines were quite far ahead. So then after about a month or so, I thought to myself, I hope whoever does this arrangement does a good job, because I don't want them ruining my piece. So that was my next thought. And about 2 weeks later, I suddenly realized that actually I was the one who was supposed to do the saxophone arrangement. And that was when the fun really started, because I had written a descant recorder piece with a lot of melodic reinforcement. So the descant was sitting right above the piano part, and with the melody line reinforced by the right hand of the piano for at least the first 4 bars. Mainly because there was no introduction. So I wanted them, if the child went wrong, they would be able to they'd be able to hear the melody played by the piano. So that was fine. So then when I realized that I was the one who was going to have to do this arrangement down a whole 12th for alto saxophone, I was suddenly like, okay. I thought, how's that going to work? So then I found that I actually had my melody line had disappeared right into the piano textures. I had unisons, I had octaves, I had all sorts of things that I was not expecting. So I really did have to recast both the parts. And not only did I have to recast it for E flat, but I also had to recast it for B flat for the soprano sax. So that was a real learning experience. And I did get there, but it was amusing, I have to say. I think as the penny dropped, it took a while, but it dropped and I suddenly realized. But I did learn a lot. And fortunately, it was good that I did, because then I was given 2 more of these recorder or upper woodwind to saxophone arrangements. So I had a chance to get going on that. Let's listen to Chansons de Patrick, and we'll go back to here and we'll skip on. This is Clegg, a colleague in Manchester. So this video also goes on, and it's on the playlist, and Sarah gives top tips. So she gives some teaching tips, which are very, very nice. So it's a kind of thing, I'm sure you'll find teachers that, there she is. Let's have a look at her. Yes. So I'm sure that she will reinforce everything that you tell your pupils all the time. So if you want to just say, go to YouTube and watch this video, this would be a good one to do. So back to the early grades, and we're now on to grade 2. And this is Colorado Cattle Drive, a score in C. So possible supplementary repertoire for violin, flute, or descant recorder, which it was originally written for descant recorder. So please feel free to play this on a descant if you would like. And you'll hear Milan see him on my YouTube channel playing it on recorder there. It's only a digital download. It's list B number 8. Not that I'm complaining, but I'm just explaining. Obviously, we don't have syllabus anthologies for oboe. So digital edition only. It's modal. It's kind of Rocky Mountains Celtic style. It's actually in mixed Lydian flattened 6th mode on G, but I've got the diatonic key signature of G major, but they're with F naturals in there, and the occasional E flat as well. That's the mixed Lydian flattened 6th scale. All about breath control, about lyricism. So it's actually really kind of, I look at it as being an early grade repertoire piece. It might be something that if you're putting on a student concerts or something like that, that you might want to consider it as a piece of extra repertoire there. We have an official oboe recording here, which we're about to hear, with this very, very talented oboist. I'd just like to say her name is Amelia Garn, and she's got the job. She's got 3 very good grade 8 distinctions, and she's really going somewhere on the oboe. So I think you'll really enjoy her playing. Let's go to Colorado Cattle Drive. So that is a video that you can also find on the ABRSM official channel. And just a bit of a plug, it was actually in one of the two official exam rooms in their fairly new headquarters in London Wall Place in the City of London, where there is a sunken garden outside called the Salters Garden with original London wall, like you see the Roman wall, the medieval wall, and all sorts of things, kind of opposite the exam room window. Like if you weren't concentrating properly in your exam, you could look out and you could be looking at 2,000 years of London wall. So I would just say to anybody who is in London who feels like a change of venue, do think about going to London Wall Place. I think you'd have a wonderful day out in the city. So I'll just say that very quickly. Let's go back to here, and we're now going to move on. We're going to stay on grade 2, but we're now going to start the Chevalier arrangements. So Joseph Bologne, Chevalier de Saint-Georges, was born in the Ancien Regime, France. Well, he wasn't actually born in France. He was born in Guadeloupe, but as part of the French Empire, 1745, and he died 10 years after the French Revolution in 1799. He was a son of a French aristocrat, Monsieur de Saint-Georges, and his unfortunate young slave mistress, Nanon or Nanu. He's, for short, I'm going to call him Chevalier. Some people like to call him Bologne. Chevalier traveled with his father to Paris at the age of 7. He was brought up as his heir, and he was taught the violin and fencing. And he actually became France's premier swordsman prior to the French Revolution. And there are various, if you go on the Wikipedia page, you'll see very amazing, some amazing kind of images and paintings of him, including one of him fighting another chevalier who was dressed as a woman. But anyway, I'll let you go and have a look at those for yourself. He had a very colorful and life, as well as a very difficult life. But his aristocratic heritage really did help him in many respects. He was actually quite a close musical associate of Queen Marie Antoinette, and that is a picture there of her in one of her salons at presumably at Versailles with a harp. He also conducted an orchestra at the Palais de Soubise, which is now the Hôtel de Soubise in Paris. He wrote many violin concerti and symphonies, and he wrote some chamber music. And he was also an associate of Mozart, Haydn, and Gluck. He actually even lived in the same house as Mozart for some time, fairly near to the Revolution. And he took over various activities in Paris from Gluck, and also, as I say, was acquainted with Haydn. So he was quite a man. He was kind of quite well plugged into the Parisian music life at the time. Just a reminder that Erard pianos were starting up then. The piece that we're going to hear next, we'll come back to the other chamber music, is I'm going to just to kind of ring the changes, I'm going to show you the very recent arrangement I've done, which is the rondo for the grade 2 piano syllabus. It's from his harpsichord quartet in G. So as I say, it was one of his few pieces of chamber music. I would advise you to reach for your volume control. I have a lot of background noise where I am, and so I recorded this with very high levels and with the brightest and brashest piano sound I could find. So I think if you just be prepared for a rather aggressive piano sound. Here we go. Let's take a look at this rondo. Very quick things to say about it. Hands together all the way, G major. It'll speak for itself, I think. Good, so I'm hoping you survived that orally speaking. I don't normally use that third setting of piano, but at least it did the job. So, and you didn't hear any buses going by, so that was good. So that's a lyric video. I'm playing the piano there, but a lyric video, which is actually I've done the kind of the history of the harpsichord and the piano a bit in that one. Obviously, I'm sure we all know that harpsichord doesn't start until grade 4 with ABRSM. So any child that you know, perhaps as a teacher, you might be thinking, gosh, you know, so-and-so is really good at Baroque music. If you think that you might want to put them onto the harpsichord track, I would actually recommend that piece as being one where you can, you know, teach them a bit about the harpsichord, and that was actually originally for the harpsichord. So that's something nice there. So that's list A number 11, available as a digital download. Just to say that you can fight your way through the ABRSM shop to find the digital download section of it. It takes a bit of searching, but actually it might be easier. On my website, I have in the menu ABRSM section there's a page, and if you just start reading through the pieces, you'll see a link to all of my pieces that are there as downloads, which probably will be easier than if you try to find it through their site, but it's entirely up to you. So you'll be able to find that there, and also on the home page you'll see a picture of that piece, and you can click on that link and that will take you through to where you can get it. So the next of these Chevalier arrangements is back to woodwind. Back to in fact, actually not back to the recorder, our first recorder piece of this presentation. This is the part of the A and B sections of the second movement of his sonata for harp and flute. It's one of those oddities, like Mozart's sonatas for harpsichord and violin. It's quite an odd time, but from my perspective, I feel that Bach really mastered the kind of the duo sonata, the three-part duo sonata with the melody line and the harpsichord in his sonatas. And then Beethoven again, you know, mastered the duo sonata. But in this classical period time, there was a kind of a slight free-for-all, and people were maybe experimenting with form, or they had different concerns. The concerns that I think that Saint-Georges had in this piece for harp and flute was that it's really a harp piece where the flute is used in different ways. So it's used to amplify the weak classical flute, or occasionally he uses it as an equal partner, or he makes it go tacit for like 20 bars and then play 4 minims. I mean, that is one of the biggest problems with Sarah's laughing. You should laugh, Sarah, because it is absolutely, it's kind of rather comical. And just to say, I actually heard this piece for the first time in 2009, and I played it twice with harp on the oboe in 2012, but it wasn't until I became a composer that I could actually work out why I'd found it odd to play. And I suddenly found myself, you know, because what happens is you end up standing there looking like a lemon on stage while the harp just has, you know, masses and masses and masses to play. So actually, but it's really beautiful music. I really actually love this piece, and I've worked so hard on it, and I'm still not tired of it. So that must tell us something. So, so what I've actually done in the first movement, which we will hear after the next video, is in the first movement, the Andantes, I've actually revoiced a lot of it, taken the top harp line, applied it to the melody instrument, and then filled in harmonies. I had to fill in a lot of thirds and sixths. It's actually a reworking of the piece. So rather than just, you know, kind of, I don't know, a digitization, there's much more to it than that. But I did think to myself, I thought, I think the A and B sections of this piece would make a really nice, you know, recorder or flute piece for grade 2. And fortunately, ABRSM agreed with me about that. So the minuetto is descant or treble recorder, lists A number 6 for descant, A number 5 for treble, score in C. So if you're interested for violin or for flute, off you go, please, or oboe, you can use that one, and it's digital download. Treble, score in F. Might even feel like having a go on it on the French horn, who knows? So there are options there for this minuetto, and why don't we listen to it? And there is also the official ABRSM recording in the exam room on treble there, which you can either see on the ABRSM, you can see further down on my own playlist on my website. So onwards to this beautiful Andante. The next video is a lyric historic video again, performed by Melanie Henry, who is was the saxophone syllabus consultant and really helpful to me as I was going through things, and had she and the team. It's a really amazing team there, actually. It's such a privilege to work with them. Often good suggestions that they would say. One of the things they wanted me to do was to kind of strike out some of the piano part notes. It was very harpish and they thought it was too much. And so we've actually got a much stiller, calmer piano part thanks to their suggestions. So that was really wonderful. Let's have a look at this. It's really, I love this piece so much. I think it's beautiful. So that's the lovely Andante, B flat and E flat scores. So I think, generally speaking, it's the B flat one that's going to be of far more use to people. Clarinet, trumpet, it would be up to you, but there's extra opportunities there. Just for anybody who likes it and maybe would be interested in exploring this piece more, this is the abridged grade 5 version that I've done for the board, but I've actually prepared a new edition of the whole work, and that's kind of coming out right now. So if anybody thinks, wow, I would really like to play this on the oboe or the recorder or flute or whatever it is, then perhaps just send me a message through the website and I'll let you know when and where the score's going to become available. It's just had its British debut it was actually last week, about 10 days ago, and it's going to have a proper debut in the States in about 10 days, 2 weeks time or so, and then it'll be available somehow online, either through me or possibly through June Emerson Wind Music. So if you're interested and you think, oh, I'd like to explore this a bit more, do send me a message. I'd love to hear from you. So let's go back to here and okay. Do you know what? I forgot I'd done those. Never mind, doesn't matter. Okay, so onwards. So that was grade 5, saxophone. I can't remember that I'd done them, it doesn't matter. So you can see them there anyway. So grade 5 saxophone, we're now going to go back to grade 3, and it's oboe again. This is chanson militaire, so back to early grades. Score in C, violin, flute, dissonant recorder are also options. Let me just, that's it. And we've got a B flat score. This is really a grade 3 piece. Like when I wrote this, I thought to myself, right, I need to write something in B flat major, and I want to go into G minor, and I want triplets galore. I thought triplets are the big thing here. And but I thought one of the ways in which I want to do the triplets is to make sure that they are brought into the piano part first. So the piano starts off with kind of, it's like a drum roll, basically, and with the triplets there. Quite a lot of finger work. The child really has to kind of sing out and have good support whilst playing. And then it concludes on top B flat. And let's go and hear Amelia play this one as well. So that's Amelia, and yeah, wonderful performance by her. Just let me just show these really. I realize actually that if I haven't shown them properly, you haven't seen them. So those are just quickly to put those slides onto this so that you can see that's the Andante page. That's information about minuetto. And there's information about the rondo. Okay, so we've got those now. If anybody wants to, you can just always go back and take a look at those slides. Second of the grade 3 pieces is really a favorite piece of mine, the Church at Ereslanen. It's got a wonderful backstory, and the backstory is actually on the front page of my website, on the homepage. So I think it's best if I just invite people to take a look at that and read all about this wonderful, wonderful church on the Ereslanen Peninsula on the far west coast of Ireland in Galway, very near to Clifton. And the concert that I did there back in, I think it was 1996, a very long time ago. So it's all about the atmosphere and what happened during that concert. And there's information and photographs and things on my website. The scores are, as it's back to saxophone, scores in B flat and E flat. So clarinet and trumpet are additional instruments apart from the sax that could play this piece. If you do like it though, I have C scores available personally from me for oboe and recorder, flute, anything like that. So violin, so just please send me a message to the website if you would like to buy a C score. So obviously the B flat and E flat scores are sold to the board, but the C scores are available from me. Written pitch for saxophone is E minor. Lyrical, focusing on breath support for long phrases. There's a kind of a cadenza at the end, so an opportunity for children to support the sound and to be expressive and do a bit of rubato and work out how they want to present, the kind of the notes at the end of the piece. Again, modal Celtic style, and quite a few YouTube videos now about this. There's the Flute and Music Academy that we're going to listen to, and there's also the original recorder version in D minor on my channel, and there's also dear Nandi Bushell. Some of you might just have heard of her. I only came across her recently. She is a very famous young drummer, actually, and she had two gigs in the Jubilee. She played in the concert on Saturday night, and she also had her own float in the procession the next day. And she's posted this piece, and so you can see her on Instagram if you would like to. Let's go here and to the next one. Lovely. So thank you very much to the ladies of Flute and Music Academy. And I'm sure many of you will know, I'm actually kind of hoping that they might even be watching this. So I don't know. I'm sure they'll let us know if they have. Perhaps if you are watching this, you might like to let us know in the comments, because you have such a fantastic range of video materials available for people, all of which are actually filmed. So children are able to watch the performance and see the pianist and the instrumentalist together. So I really love Flute and Music Academy. So thank you very much, ladies, if you're watching. The next piece is the second last one. And this is the Walmer Beach Reel. And this is part of what I say on my website is creating art from life. And my husband and I moved down to Walmer on the Kent coast for about 2.5 years. We just rented a property there, and we were just wanted a bit of break from London. We're actually both Londoners. And Walmer is really, really historical. It's got an amazing history. It's very near Deal, so it's in between Deal and Dover. And it's actually the site of not one, but two Roman landings. So Julius Caesar actually pitched up on the beach in kind of the 43, 44 BC, only about 200 meters away from the house that we were actually living in. And it's full of historical relevance, and really, really inspired me in my composing. We were there from 2015 to the end of 2017. One of the things I thought when I was there was I wanted to learn to compose a reel. So I studied reels, even though a reel obviously is Irish, but I still love that kind of music. So I thought I'd love to learn how do you compose a reel. So I studied that, and I decided to make it the Walmer Beach Reel. This is the second piece in a set of 4 intermediate recorder stroke oboe pieces called the Valum Mare Suite. Valum Mare is the Latin name for Walmer, meaning wall by the sea. So it's obviously has been fortified at various times. It actually has 2 castles, Deal Castle and Walmer Castle, which are totally intact. And the Duke of Wellington used to live in Walmer Castle actually for quite some time. So that was interesting. So the Walmer Beach Reel is the second piece. It's a take no prisoners recorder half-holing exercise. So if your children don't like, your pupils don't like half-holing, they'll like it by the end of this because they have to. Lots and lots and lots of really big leaps. What you can see on the slide there is the treble arrangement that ABRSM asked me to make. So as I say, scores in C and F, that's the F score there. The C score is in E minor. And we've got triplets and normal quavers, large leaps, half-holding, and why don't we hear Kelsey play it? Kelsey is actually one of the dedicatees. So you might be able to see on the score, it says for Kelsey Mason and Susanna Sionelis, and this is Kelsey playing it. So just to say that you might have heard a lot of, I don't know, but from the streaming, I can hear the tempo is really variant. I want to reassure you that Kelsey does not play the recorder like that. Like if you heard lots of Cellarandi and Ritanuti, it's not like that. She's got very, very good sense of tempo and she plays very steadily. So if you were getting those ebbs and flows, please feel free again to go to my YouTube channel and watch her for yourself on your own computer where you'll hear how good she is. So delightful child, lovely, lovely girl, lovely family. So the final piece I'd like to present is Prelude, the Seafront, which is the first movement of the Bologne suite, but was actually, I think, was the last one I wrote. So it uses a theme that I developed in the fourth piece, which is called the fourth movement, called the Warble Castle Theme of Variations. We start with our backs to the cafe on the pier. So the idea with this suite, it's called Bologne an Adventure Suite. The idea was that the children would, I was hoping that, this might even happen, that some recorder children might actually even find out about the piece and decide to take their recorders to Deal and go on an adventure with this music. So the idea that I have is that they would start on the pier, over the water, and start walking down Deal Pier, and ahead of them they would see all the wonderful buildings, those kind of 400-year-old houses, the 350 to 400-year-old houses, and they would see the Time Ball Tower. So they stroll along Deal Pier, that's on the score there. Then they see the Time Ball Tower, which is a time ball that some of you will know about that. The ships would set their sextants and everything like that by it, so it would drop on the hour. And the Deal Time Ball Tower still does that. So anybody in the English Channel that doesn't have digital, well, I mean, everybody's got digital things these days, but ships would sail by. It's a big shipping area, of course, near Dover, and they could see the Time Ball Tower from the water and set their clocks and put everything right on ship by it. So the children would see the Time Ball Tower and then start walking down the seafront, which is really beautiful. So much to see. You see Deal Castle, there's a paddling pool there. The water's to the left, lovely little kind of huts also to the left. We get to the end. We go past, there's also some quite comical things there. I do advise people, if you're in England and you want a day out, it's really worth going to. There's a house there that says SPQR on it, which for thus who are not familiar means Senatus Populus Quae Romanus, which was what all the Roman armies had on their banners, and as for the Roman Republic and then the Empire, and all about the Roman Senate. And the house is where people thought that Julius Caesar first landed, so they thought that he landed there. So this house has SPQR in purple on two places, on the side and at the front. So that would always really make me laugh whenever I walk by. I'm just like, oh, there's the SPQR house. So we've actually got the kind of a slight monument to the SPQR house here, but also to the stone monument, which is about a quarter of a mile further along, where they really think that that's exactly the point where they came, where the Romans actually invaded Britain at that very point. And you can find out more about this and see some photographs on my website. So let's go is there anything else I need to say? Yeah, repertoire piece, supplementary repertoire for violin, flute, oboe, French horn even. You could even maybe try it on that with scores in C and F. And it's on my YouTube channel. And why don't we head there? So that's the prelude, and I forgot to say that at the end, that last section is called the Hidden Gardens of Walmer. So what happens is you get into Walmer from Deal, and there's a very grand road there. It's called the Beach, and there's some fantastic houses. They're really huge, and they're painted all different colours. And some of them have got gardens actually on the greensward, so just kind of to the right-hand side of the footpath. And so, but they're all kind of hidden with lots of bushes and things like that around. So they became the Hidden Gardens of Walmer. And then when you get to the end of those, you can see Walmer Castle. So that's that piece. So yes, so that's it for the 10 pieces that I have had the privilege of having published directly by ABRSM. So generous of them, and such a privilege to work with them, such a fantastic team. Just before we finish, there's just something very quickly that I did want to say, which was that when I was a child, I always wanted to compose, but I didn't know how to develop a musical idea. And I actually became a composer through the pedagogical part of my career portfolio. I became a composer through writing tutor books and pedagogical music, and I just taught myself in a very structured way to compose. And I would like to invite some of you to think about whether you too would like to branch out into composition, because I think, especially with pedagogical composition, one of the best things that you can bring to the table as a composer is all those years of teaching experience, knowing what the problems are with this and that, knowing what you want to develop in your pupils. I would just say to you that if you've taught Eric Taylor's music theory and practice, or great Australian materials, or other Malaysian, Singaporean materials, whatever people have been using, those books do actually teach composition. I mean, he teaches, Eric Taylor teaches the answering rhythm, so that you start to build a 4-bar rhythm, 4-bar phrasing, those things. As you get to intermediate grades 4 and 5, he starts to say things like, don't circle around a few notes, make sure that you go to the dominant in the middle, start with a tonic, go to the dominant, don't have too big a range or too small a range. All of those things are things that really I have rested my own compositional development upon, those things, plus of course all the 4-part harmony and Bach chorales that one had to harmonize. So of course, obviously you need to have more advanced learning than that, but I mean, I'm in my mid-50s now. I'm now relaxed about saying that because my date of birth is on every single score. So what can I do? So people can tell I'm 55. But the way that I was brought up, and some of you will be the same as older teachers, is I wasn't taught any composing at all. It was all instrumental boot camp and theory boot camp, and I'm grateful for that because it gave me the groundings to have the career that I've had. But and actually younger teachers now. Many have gone through the changes in the British curriculum, where composition is now a compulsory part of both the GCSE and the A level. So the year 10 and the HSC, or in Australia, or whatever it is people doing, year 10 and year 12, the composition is an essential part of GCSE and A level now in a way that it never was in my day. So they probably don't feel as estranged from composing as perhaps some older musicians do. But actually, if you've taught theory, you've done, you've harmonized Bach chorales, and you've taught for a long time, you too might like to think about composing something. So I would just like to give that as a kind of a takeaway for our session today. And now I'd like to hand back to Sarah. Thank you so much.
I will just add myself as add a spotlight. There we are. Then both of us are there. I think because of the time, I won't ask if there's any questions. I think this has been so inspiring, and to know with these pieces all this different background stuff that. I think my favourite part was the story of the stolen bicycle. Definitely that will be part of my teaching from now on when I come across this piece. And funnily, while you were speaking, someone said the grade 5 one that has the unusual long name at the end, Iramanen.
The church at Erislanen, that's grade 3. Yeah,
yes,
grade 3.
Someone said, I played that today when I was accompanying someone's exams. So it's really lovely. Oh,
great.
So I really thank you for the time you've given today. It's been very helpful, definitely for teaching, and maybe for students who can be inspired by all those wonderful performances if they're watching on the live stream, or it will stay on the page till later. So thank you once again for that. Oh, there is a question. Where can we find the sheet music of Dodgen's oboe sonata?
of, let me just have a look at. Now, let me just think. Is that I think he wrote a sonata, and is that the oboe and piano one or the oboe and harpsichord one? But I would say the best place would be to go to June Emerson Wind Music. I'm just going to put that in.
Sorry, it's a suite, not the sonata. I mistyped it.
It's a suite, oboe and harpsichord.
The one that you play for on the oboe classic CD.
Thank you very much. Thank you for listening to that as well. Why don't you try June Emerson Wind Music? And I think, I don't think Amazon would have it, but I think June Emerson would have it. And if they don't, they would be able to get it for you. It should still be in print because it's Oxford. Let me just put that there. If you really can't find it, I think I might have 2 copies, so I could even send you one. But probably they would have that. I think it's only a score. I doubt it's been digitized, so I don't think it would be a download, but it might be. Maybe something's happened that I don't know about.
It's a piece that my student wanted to play, but he couldn't find the music. He looked everywhere online and just couldn't find it.
Okay, well, what I might do is I could have a look and then I could leave it in the comments, couldn't I, Sarah, if I can find something?
Absolutely. And we can tag Mr. Leung as well. But look, this has been so helpful and so lovely to balance our instruments out with some great woodwind stuff there, and my personal favourite recorder. So it's time to say good night. Everybody who's not saying good night, have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you for joining us. And if we could give a round of applause to Althea.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, all of you, for coming and listening. I'm very grateful. Thank you. And thank you, Sarah.
Yeah, thank you. Well, have a good day, good night, and we'll see you all next time. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.